Hi, my name is Rachel Messer, and today we are talking about resumes. So there's a couple things that you want to make sure that you include in your resume. Of course, any acting experience that you've got, any acting classes. You can sometimes put tech classes, and I'll talk about why I put sometimes in the front of that. But yes and no to tech classes. Any singing or dance classes normally help. Dance, probably not as much if you're going more into the voice acting side of things, but if you're wanting to go into theater and film as well, dance is something you can totally put on there. Make sure that you put your best form of contact, a way that you check frequently. So if there's a certain email that you don't check very often, maybe once a week or once every 3 or 4 days, don't list that one. Make sure that you put your phone number or some way that they can get a hold of you quickly. Because a lot of times, if they can't get a hold of you within the first 24 to 48 hours, they'll go on with another actor. So make sure that your best form of contact is on there. You can also put any special skills that you have on there. And I'll talk a little bit of what qualifies as a special skill in a minute. You can put your training on there. Training includes classes that you've taken on your own, classes that you took maybe in high school or college, and sometimes they can be classes that aren't necessarily completely about acting. So occasionally, and we'll talk about padding in a minute, padding your resume so that if you don't have a lot of experience, you don't just have a pretty much blank piece of paper. But in that situation, you can get away with speech and debate classes, things like that. There's also, you can sometimes put a mini headshot, or some people put a little mini body shot at the top of their resume in the little corner area. This is a hit and miss thing. You don't always have to do it, but if, say, you look completely different with glasses and your main headshot is you with glasses and you want a picture of it without, or if your hair is naturally curly and you want a picture of it straight, or some people will include a body shot so that they know what type of build your body is. Now, again, if you're messing with voice acting, not necessary. When it comes to organizing shows, you want to try and go by type. So an example would be, don't put like a commercial voiceover you did and then the next thing be a theater or a play and then a film. You want to make sure that you organize everything by type. Put all of your voiceover work together, put all of your film work together, put all of your theater work together. It's easier on the eye for the director or whoever's looking at your resume to kind of jump to what they want to see. So there are a couple things that you do not want to include in your resume. One being fake credits. Kind of the rule of thumb is if a project doesn't happen, take it off your resume as soon as possible. Most of the time you're given like about 2 or 3 months to take it off because you might have printed out some in advance, or it just might have taken you a little while to update it if it's an online version. But make sure that you take off roles that didn't happen. I've seen a lot of actors who have the credit on there but have maybe marked canceled at the side or postponed. You don't want to have that because it looks like you're hurting for work if you can't keep up with recent projects. So make sure that everything that's on there has happened or is currently still going on. You also want to make sure that you don't have long sentences. So this isn't a resume like you would be trained to have for a regular 9-to-5 job. So you don't need to put why you're best for the part or what this role means to you. Basically with a resume is they're looking at what your training is, what your credentials are, what your experience is. So they don't need long sentences. You also want to make sure that it's not longer than a page, especially if it's longer with a page with blank spots. I've had resumes come to me that have maybe theater and they've had 2 or 3 theater credits and then 3 or 4 blank credits or blank spaces for more credits to go. And this resume in particular was about 2 or 3 pages and most of it was showing me what they hadn't accomplished or what they hadn't done versus what they had. So it looks better to have maybe, your theater work and have 2 or 3 credits and that's it, than to have the blank spaces where other work should go or could go. So just, if there's not a lot, just leave it there, don't put blank spaces in between. You want to make sure that you don't have too much color on your resume. I've seen some resumes come in where each letter of each word was a different font color. It's too crazy. Most of the time you want to limit it to 3 colors max. You don't want too much clutter on your resume. You don't want it to look hard to look at. So one of the best things to do that I recommend is print off your resume and hand it to a couple friends and say, hey, what are the first 3 things you notice on this resume? And then you can kind of tailor it. So if they say, oh, I see your name first, which is good, or I notice the word theater first, or I notice your contact information first. You can then start to tailor it and see what jumps off the page and make it to where certain credits and certain roles jump off the page so that that's the first thing they see. You don't want to include credits not pertaining to acting. So even if you're going in for a role that's a secretary type role, don't put your secretary experience. Sometimes you put that under special skills, but don't put like a list or a credit or kind of a regular resume of I worked as a secretary from this date to this date. Put that in your special skills, but at the top and at the main body of your resume, you want it to be your acting experience and training. So what I want to talk about next is what's called padding. Padding is what you can do to a resume if you don't have a whole bunch of experience or a whole bunch of training, so your resume doesn't look as blank and it doesn't have a whole bunch of blank spaces on it. So a couple of the things that you can include for padding. Classes that you took, of course, that counts as training. Any speech classes, any dance recitals, and that's kind of stretching it a little bit, but it works. You want to try and keep all of your training within about a 5-year span. That's kind of stretching it, but again, if you need to pad, it's okay. Just don't put the dates on there because the dates show how long ago it was. You can also include at the bottom of your resume what are called special skills. Special skills can be anything from accents and dialects that you can do, any musical training, so if you have instruments that you can play like guitar or violin or piano, you can put that in there as well. What I recommend for special skills is to go ahead and just Google actor resumes, and you'll find everybody has kind of their own little sets of what they qualify as their special skills. Now, when your resume starts to get a little long, you'll see that some people will take their dance training and they'll put it in their special skills rather than having a little category of its own for dance. Same with accents. You can also include fight training or any fight classes that you might have taken. If you took martial arts growing up, if you're currently taking like kickboxing classes or any of that jazz, that works wonderfully for film, and a lot of film people will look for someone who's got some kind of martial arts training. So I'd also recommend that is a really easy, accessible way to get training that you can put on your resume. Speaking of easily accessible things that you can put on your resume, community theater is always hiring. Okay, I say hiring, it's not normally paying, so it's not technically a job, but it is a great way for people that are starting out in acting to get experience and to get roles on your resume. So I highly recommend checking out a community theater near you and seeing what their shows are and when their auditions are.